you for that. Anybody else? Yes, Kenneth.
Okay, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. I like to think of creativity as bringing something out of nothing. So in the context of business, I'll say that it is doing something that almost no one else is doing something in a way that distinguishes you. In some business circles, they call it differentiation or innovation, doing something in a way that sets you apart from the rest of the pack, attracts attention to you, and delivers value that is not commonly seen. So, and it's a vital skill for entrepreneurs, because as an entrepreneur, you're building something new. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Indeed, it actually leads me to my first slide, which, as you can see, I've got my content there. So I'm going to be discussing creativity. I'm going to discuss customer focus. I'm going to share a case study with you, especially because I know that you are all in the insurance business, and I think this case study will resonate with you. I will address integrity, consistency, persistence, discipline, and I will end with professionalism. These, I believe, are the building blocks to running or operating or creating a successful business. All right, so let's go right to it. So, as you can see, and thank you for the share, because you all at least get it. You understand what creativity is. In my previous life, I just assumed that creativity was, you know, those who can play musical instrument, or an actor, or those who can paint, and so on. And to be perfectly honest, I sat for years thinking I wasn't creative, until one day I had an aha moment, and I realized that the height of creativity for me is when there is a challenge, when there is something that others say, oh, we can't work on this. That is when I actually become incredibly creative, because I go into solution mode and I start looking at how I can address these issues and challenges. And that is creativity. So creativity is not just about those who are able to, you know, sing a song or anything like that. It is also about those who are able to come up with, you know, solutions to challenges. So it says here, creativity in business is a way of thinking that inspires and challenges people to find innovative solutions and create opportunities out of problems. Again, you echoed that, Kenneth, and that is that already shows that you don't even need to be here. But don't go, I'm just joking. So creativity or creative thinking, okay, helps you to see opportunities in the marketplace. Now, what is interesting is that, you know, over the years, I talk to CEOs of different companies and I ask them questions, you know, and one of the questions I asked a CEO, this was when I was living in Kenya. I was talking about, you know, interviews and job search. And I asked the CEO, what would make you employ somebody? And he gave me a story. He said, you know what, there was a young man who had been trying to get to see him for weeks and months, but he was always busy. And obviously, you know, if you've got a really powerful PA, that PA acts as a firewall to anybody that is coming to you. So this young man decided he had to do something. You know, there's that saying, if the mountain, if Muhammad won't go to the mountain must come to Muhammad. So what he did, and this, you can tell that it's many years ago, some of you might not even know what a cassette is, but this young man put his CV on a cassette. And then he went to the company where the CEO worked, and he waited in the car park. And as the CEO was driving out just by the boom gate, he intercepted him and said, "Sir, I've been trying to get to you for months now, and I've not had any success. I know you're going home, and I know that you're going to be in traffic for a few hours. Please, here is my CV. I've put it on a cassette for you to listen as you go home. And that young man was employed. He got the job because he was creative. He didn't sit and say, oh my gosh, I can't see this man. I really want to work in this company and it's not happening. He actually took action and it bore fruit. That is what you do. So you take opportunities and you make sure that you actually get the results that you want. It says here that it stimulates the brain. Creativity stimulates the brain, helping you to develop novel approaches. There's one that I've just shared. There's another young man, and I know as Africans, we often shy away from things, any talk about death and funerals and so on. But this young man also used to read the obituary columns in newspapers. And the question was, why? He said, because if somebody has died, normally in the obituary, they even talk about where the person worked. It means that there's an opening for that person to be replaced. So I read the obituaries so that I can approach companies when, things have settled down a bit to see if I can't get a job that the deceased person was, was filling when he was in the company. So you see that it's about developing novel approaches. When we say novel, it's things that most people would not normally think about. It also helps you to keep your business presence fresh. So people need to know who you are, where you are. I'm not very good with social media, but I try. My children laugh all the time, but I try. And one of the things that I do is, especially on LinkedIn, I try and write articles. And sometimes I'm really inspired and I'll write something or a topic that is, being debated, and I will respond. That is one of the ways in which you also keep your business presence fresh. I've been approached by so many people all over the world just by going through my profile on LinkedIn. So again, that is an excellent place, especially for those of you in business who are in network marketing, who are professionals out there. If you're not on LinkedIn, really, then what are you doing? All right. So it also helps to shift your perception. As you can see, I've put quite a number of, areas there, shifting your perception. If we're creative, we have a higher tolerance for risk, because one day somebody said to me, if you're going to go to the bank and ask for, 100 cedis, for example, it's just the same as asking for 1 million cedis, because the answer will still be the same. Potentially, it will be a yes or a no. So if you're going to go and ask for money, don't be shy and go and ask for what you think they will give you. Ask for what you actually need and then see how it goes from there. Of course, creativity also helps to broaden your vision. Without vision, we are nowhere. If you cannot see ahead, how can you even really see what you can do and what your potential is? I'll talk a little bit more about resilience later, because I think resilience is something that as entrepreneurs we've taken as, we get beaten and beaten and beaten and we keep jumping up and bouncing back, but actually resilience is also more than that. Okay, and I've put here to be creative. Now, ask to speak at an event. Whenever you know that there is an event happening somewhere, if you get an invite, just contact the organizers and ask, is it possible to address your guests for 2 to 3 minutes? There is a critical reason for that. When you do that, if you've noticed, whenever you go to an event, the speakers don't go to the crowd. The crowd goes to the speakers. People line up to speak to the to the speakers because they are seen as the experts, they are seen as the people with the knowledge and so on. So part of being creative is to actually ask for just those 2-3 minutes. And when you ask for that, make sure it's impactful. Whatever you're going to share is impactful, because once you do that, people will just flock to you. And therefore, you don't need to go to people and say, hi, my name is Millie, here's my business card, because you won't be remembered. But the people who speak are the ones who are remembered. And worst case scenario, they say, sorry, the lineup is too tight. But most often, good organizers will find a little spot, even if it's just 2 or 3 minutes. So use that as a tactic to get people to come to you to learn from you. All right, now let's look at customer focus, okay? We say here that you must make it all about the customer. The one thing I've seen, I've traveled quite a bit. I've also experienced quite a bit over the years, and I've experienced different types of customer service. And sometimes it's really bad, and other times it's amazing. There's a restaurant in South Africa that I absolutely love going to. It's a 5-star restaurant. It's not one of the cheapest, but if any of you have ever had a massage, okay, when I go to that restaurant, I come back and I feel like I've had a good massage. I feel relaxed, I feel pampered, I feel incredible. And that is because the way they serve you, it is so beautiful. You are everything to them. You are basically the most important person in that restaurant as they're serving you. Regardless of the fact that there are hundreds of others there, you, with your waiter, you are the most important. And that is what being customer focused is about. So if you are in business and you are not taking customer focus as a critical perspective and a process that you need to inculcate and demonstrate, then you're actually doing yourself an injustice. There are people who work in various restaurants, or they're even working in retail. Maybe they're working in a company, but for example, a company may be doing leadership development, but you work there and you've never attended any of those courses. How do you then disseminate information? How do you experience it so that you can actually be excited about it? Okay, and the reality is that if we don't do that, then we're actually not doing justice to anything. So from an insurance perspective, from the sector that you are in, if you are going out and trying to get people to buy your product, to sign up and to invest their money for the future, what are you going to tell them if you yourself don't even have a policy of your own, and so on? Okay. You need to also be able to step into the shoes of your employees. At the end of the day, if people are working for you, and all of you, if you don't have people working for you now, you will have a team working for you. And those people need to be nurtured. They need to be appreciated. They need to be respected. And the reality is that if you don't do that, you will end up actually losing so many staff. The turnover will be so high. I'm sure some of you have watched a program on DSTV called Undercover Boss. I love watching programs like that. It brings me to tears. It makes me feel all good and fuzzy inside. But on the serious note, here is a boss who goes into his company, pretends to be somebody else, and spends a week working with the staff so that he sees what happens. And from there, some people have gotten promotions, other people have been put on a development path, some have been released from the company. And that is primarily because if you go and you discover that somebody is not doing justice to your company, maybe there's quiet sabotage and so on, of course, you're not going to keep them there. Okay, so it's important to be able to actually see yourself or step into the shoes of your employees so that you're able to adequately provide for them. I had the privilege of speaking. In fact, I attended a session by the CEO of Nando's. Now, some of you who've traveled, you know Nando's is one of the biggest food chains in the world. They've got over 2,000, I think, stores. They don't franchise, so each one is a branch. And the owner oftentimes travels to the various countries, and he also goes in undercover and he just checks to see how his staff are doing, what their customer service is like, and so on. And based on that, he comes back and he makes improvements. At 10 years ago, when I had the privilege of meeting him, he said they had put a moratorium on opening new branches for a year. Not because the demand was not there, but primarily because he felt that they needed to improve the services for the branches that they already had before opening new branches. Isn't that amazing? I mean, when you can do that, it also means you're confident in your product, but you're putting the customer first. Okay. One of the groups, Piedmont, they own a group of hotels and casinos and so on. And they also ask their employees questions about the business and what innovation they can come with. FNB, First National Bank in South Africa, I'm not sure if First National Bank here has done the same, but First National Bank in South Africa has created some millionaires because they give their employees an opportunity to come up with innovative ideas that will help them to serve their customers better. And because of that, FNB is one of the leading banks in South Africa. I bank with them, not because they're the cheapest, but because from a business perspective, they actually give the quality. There's always something new that they're providing that the other banks are not. The speed of service, transaction, all that is critical. Okay. This is my absolute favorite one. I've put K's Shoe Shop here. Now, K's Shoe Shop is K's Shoes is a brand in the UK. I worked for them when I was a student. That was many, many moons ago. Okay. But what I learned at that time is that if you give people quality, they will always come back to you. So K's Shoes, what they would then do is, when you've worn your shoes for, let's say, 6 months, a year, and it's looking a little bit tatty, you can actually take it back to K's for them to recondition it for you. So what they do is they recondition the leather, the interior, and everything, but they don't tamper with now the fit, because your feet have gotten used to the shoe and you're comfortable in it. And I noticed that people would bring shoes sometimes a year, 2 years later, and they will have them reconditioned. Their service is that good that I experienced a customer that came in with a pair of shoes. And she said, oh, I just noticed that these shoes are, one is the wrong size. In other words, if she was a size, let's say a size 5. She had one foot that was a size 5, and the other was 4.5. And she said, for years it's been stressing me because it's uncomfortable. This was 2-3 years previously. She had bought these shoes, and she discovered that she had been given 2 different sizes. Guess what? We exchanged the shoes for her. In fact, the shoe had those shoes were discontinued. We asked her if she wanted a new pair of shoes or a refund. That was 2-3 years later. That is incredible customer service. And that's why some of the brands actually stay around for a long time, because in the end, if you notice, they are able to provide you with a service that you won't get anywhere else. There are some places you go to when you you complain or you say something is not right, they will be so flippant. They will treat you, they'll almost treat you like a criminal to the extent where you feel embarrassed. So a few weeks ago, I had an experience where we had no power at home and it was quite late. So we went and we got KFC. But when it came, it was awful. It was so badly cooked. It was overcooked. It was dry. It was, you know, you could tell that the oil they had used was really old. We ate some of it because we were hungry and it was late. The next day I called the KFC branch and the manager said, oh, well, how many pieces do you have left? Okay, then fine, we'll give you the pieces that you've got left. And I said, no, I was not calling for you to replace the KFC, but I think your customer service is terrible because that is not the correct way to treat a customer. He very quickly apologized and then told me, no, I can come in and they will have a pack ready for me. Sometimes you also have to tell people when you're not happy with the service, but that was the experience. So if you're customer focused, you will be able to hold your customer for years. The case shoes, the F&Bs, those who are doing Secret Boss and all the rest of it, or Undercover Boss, these are companies that have longevity. They're there for years. Case shoes is over 100 years old. Some of these companies have been there for 60, 70 years old. There's a brand in the UK called Fortnum and Masons. They do the most beautiful marmalades, teas, and so on. And they've been in existence since the 18th century. So 17 something or other they started. And yet they are still considered an exclusive brand. And that's because they make their customers feel massaged and pampered and good. You need to do that. Even with insurance, you can do that. You can still make your customer feel important. You can make your customer feel that without their business, you have nothing, which indeed is also true. Now, let's move on. Okay, we talked earlier about creativity, and I think this is a very good case study to share with you. And it's interesting that wherever you go in the world, foreigners who have come in looking for an opportunity are always the ones who are very resilient. They are hardworking, they come up with ideas. This is a case study from South Africa. And it's actually a group of Kenyans who were living in South Africa and went into the insurance business. Okay. Okay. Do you want to say something? Is that Franca? Okay. All right. Shall I continue?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So we noticed that, you know, there's a community center, and we noticed that there were a line of cars parked outside this community center. And these were, you know, your exclusive 4x4s and so on. And we thought, oh, maybe there's a convention happening. Okay. As it turned out, there was no convention, but these were a group of people who worked in the insurance sector, the vast majority of them being from Kenya. And they were making serious money in South Africa. They did something different. So what they would do is they would go into a small town. Okay, so a rural area, for example, a village in Apam or Wale Wale, and they would actually go there where the South Africans wouldn't want to go. Most people don't want to do any work in the rural areas, especially those living in your Johannesburg, Cape Town, and so on. Even in my business, I do training, skills development, facilitation. And we took on projects in rural areas, Sometimes we're traveling 18 hours by car to get to those places. So we would actually spend the night, we break the journey, and then move on to the area, the region that we're working in. 18 hours of traveling just to go and serve people in those communities, because most people in Johannesburg or in the major cities don't want to do work in the rural areas because of the traveling, because of the distance and so on. But these Kenyans, they did it. So they went into these schools and these environments, and what they would do is, for example, they will approach a school and they will actually go and speak to the principal and maybe take a radio, or in those days, you know, a cassette recorder, and they'll present it as a gift to the principal. And then the principal will invite all the teachers. Now, what happens is when the principal is the one inviting you, you know that you've got respect for your headmaster, the boss. If the boss is inviting you and saying, this is an opportunity that you need to come and hear, of course, you will go. And from there, they will present to the school or to the community, and they will actually get at least 50% of those signing up to purchase the insurance products. So you can see that that was creativity, but over and above that, it generated serious commissions for them, to the point where some of them were on at least 327,000 cedis a year, or at 1 million cedis a year, just from selling insurance. So it is possible. Anything is possible. It's about your approach, how you go about it, and the way in which you make sure that people that you approach actually understand the value of what you are giving them. And I believe that this is a very innovative case study that can help people in your sector to also think out of the box. If you're all doing your work in Accra or the major cities, what about the outlying areas? Because even in the village, somebody needs insurance for their retirement. Somebody needs a life policy. Somebody needs insurance to be able to take their children to school, or to fix things if you know, they have a problem with things in the home and so on. So the reality is that it's about you tapping into that creativity we talked about right at the beginning. Because we are entrepreneurs, we are creative. We're always thinking, what can I do differently? And that's what these Kenyans did, and that's what made them money. And you know, they never looked back. It's interestingly, their fellow South Africans started asking them how they were doing it, and they also began teaching people their strategy, because we know that one person cannot corner the entire country by themselves. So the pie is big enough. And if the pie is big enough, you can share it, and you can still eat well and take care of yourself and your family. All right. If you are in business and you're not a person of integrity, in fact, without integrity, I should possibly have started with this. Without integrity, you are wasting your time. If people can't trust your word, if people cannot embrace that what you say is what they get, you're actually doing an injustice. The truth is that if you are not honest in business, if you do not have self-integrity, if you're not able to say, I will do the right thing even when no one is looking, then you are actually always operating out of integrity. So those of you who are in business, how often have you broken your word to those around you or to customers? How often? You need to introspect and be able to say, okay, on the basis of that, I need to do business differently. Because through integrity, when you work in integrity, people will bring business to you. I'm not much of a salesperson. And so over the years, most of the business that I've actually been able to get has literally been on referrals. People talk about Millie. Sometimes they may even say, you know what, Millie, the certain processes, she may even take a bit long with it, but she will always deliver. Even if I have undercharged you, I will still deliver. That is the level of integrity I'm talking about. So if you're in business and you do not have integrity, you actually need to go and sit down and really do some reflection so that you can improve and serve your customers better. So these are the tips. As you can see, I have given the citation where I got it from. There is still so much information on that site that you can also get to improve your knowledge even further. You can lead by example. In other words, your word is your bond. What you say is what happens. I believe in servant leadership as well. So over the years, I have even served my staff. I've taken, in South Africa in August, it's called Women's Month. We celebrate the 1956 demonstration where women got together to fight against past laws. And so every August we consider it as Women's Month. And you can ask my staff, there've been times where I've actually brought in someone to give them a spa treatment, and then I've made them brunch, and I've washed the dishes afterwards and basically served them, because at the end of the day, these are people who I believe I don't pay well enough, but they serve me with such incredible loyalty that I also need to do from time to time my bit to honor them. And so it is important to lead by example. You need to exercise open communication. You need to be accountable for your actions. So please, when you make a promise and you can't fulfill it, don't blame somebody else. Have an internal locus of control and say, I need to own this. I messed up. That is the beginning of you doing exceedingly well. Okay. You need to be consistent. I know we all battle with things like that. I don't know if anybody wants to comment or input, because this was not really meant to be a lecture. I think it's an opportunity for us to engage. I can see that, oh, fantastic. I've got Zanele, unless that was an old hand. There's Kenneth. And then there's someone with a Dell, no name. It just says Dell. Perhaps, Kenneth, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. I wanted to share something about on the customer experience aspect. Mm-hmm. In my place of work, we will usually rotate caterers. So every now and then, there's a new set of caterers. This current set, they did two interesting things that border on creativity and customer experience. The first thing was that they started serving core Nigerian food. I live in Ghana. They started serving core Nigerian food because my company is mostly, there's like at least 40% Nigerians. So what my understanding was, they assessed their market, their environment, and they were able to provide what they feel people need. The second thing which I want to lay emphasis on is one of the days I went to the counter to get my food, and the waitress called my attention. Hello, what can I do for you? That has not happened to me in the last 5 years. Every time you go to the counter, you have to call the attention of the waitress. You have to go, I'm here, please, I want this. I mean, but she called my attention. And this is a practice that I've seen in many shops in Ghana, Africa. You step into a shop, they're looking at their PC, they're looking at something else. They don't even acknowledge that you are there as a customer. And I think that customer experience is a critical, difference maker for businesses in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for that, because and I hope that you did actually acknowledge what you experienced and thank the waiter or the person serving. So we're talking about consistency, okay? And I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think there's enough explanation here. But basically, when you are in business, if you're not consistent, remember that if your inconsistency can hurt your business. So you need to make sure you ensure that your efforts are aligned. In other words, don't go and do something that has no purpose. There is no, real results that you're going to glean from that. You need to define your brand and stick to it. Don't jump here and jump there. Make sure that you're very clear about what it is you are selling and what you want to get out of it. Okay. And when you make a plan, see it through. Do not say you're going to do something. Again, it goes back to even integrity. Is your word your bond? So make sure that when you make a plan, you see it through. Always sit back and say, well, my efforts are actually generating the results that I want. Am I on the right path? Are things going the way they should go? And if they're not, then you need to revisit and see how you can realign, okay? Consider how changes affect your clients as well. So if you're going to make a change in your business, you need to be able to also ease your clients into that, or your customers, ease them into it. Let them know that the change is coming, and work with them so that by the time the change happens, they are actually ready and embracing it. Okay. Be persistent. All right. I mean, if you're in sales and you're not persistent, you have problems. But sometimes remember that in being persistent is not about being a nuisance. There are some people who will automatically be interested in what you have, and you don't have to do much hard sell. And then there are those you have to coax a little bit. You've got to nurture them, and you've got to get them excited. So remember that persistence is about just making sure that people keep you at top of mind. They remember you, and they know that you have something that they need, but you don't have to keep bashing them if they're not interested. Move on, because those who actually are interested are the ones who are going to help you to build your business effectively. Learn from your mistakes. If you make a mistake, it's okay. Don't wallow in it. Don't sit and say, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, no, I can't cope. Oh, I can't manage. Learn from your mistakes, move on. There's a song, when you fall, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. That's what happens when you make a mistake in business. You notch it down to experience, you learn from it, and you take the lessons from that to help you to do better. Okay, discipline. It's a big one, okay? So if you are unable to handle any of these 8 areas on this list, that you know when you're running a business, you will have frustrations, especially with this COVID times. The businesses that have crumbled, businesses that have not survived. Some did not survive in 2020, and those who have not survived in 2021. COVID has not gone away. We're still going to have problems even as 2022 approaches. So if you are unable to handle frustration, if you're not hardworking, if your mindset is not right, remember, if you live in negativity, one of my daughters always says, Mommy, the glass is not half empty, it's half full. So how you see things, the perceptions that you have, help you to be able to always continue, even when things are not working exactly the way you've planned it. Be patient. Have a willingness to learn and to be shown a different way sometimes. Always be on time. I don't believe in African time. I believe that if you are in business and you tell a client you're coming to see them at 8 o'clock, and at 10 to 8, you're calling to say you're running late, that is really unprofessional. We'll talk about professionalism later, but be punctual, be on time, so that, again, it goes back to integrity. Do I trust your word? If you say 8 o'clock, is it going to be 8 o'clock or 8:30 or even 9, like that? Be organized and be accountable. Okay, now I'm going to end here. Okay, so like I said, professionalism is so important. You need to be able to also establish appropriate boundaries with people you work with clients, and so on, because that can impact on whether you run a business that is effective or not. I know as Africans, sometimes, you know, we are encouraged to employ the niece or the nephew that's unemployed, and sometimes they don't have the right skills. But because we don't have the appropriate boundaries in place, we often end up having those people in our company as employees, and they usually more of a burden than a help. Okay. Always encourage personal improvement, the way you look, the way you dress, the way you talk. Read as much as you can. Read at least tell yourself, at least one book a month. I will read one book a month. It does help you to improve. And read books from all sectors that cut across sectors, because you will learn a lot about the trends and what is happening out there in the world. Promote and maintain accountability. I think we talked about that even in terms of discipline. And of course, establish respect for authority and for yourself. If you don't respect yourself, nobody's going to respect you. And of course, boost respect and minimize conflict. So I'm going to end here. I'm sure people would want to contribute. I'm sure there are a few questions. And I hope that what I was able to share was, you know, at least it gave you some food for thought.
Wow.
So I'd like to thank UBN for this incredible opportunity. And I'm going to hand it back to the UBN organizers so that they can actually, you know, continue and facilitate the process. I know